If you picture a gold bar in your mind, chances are you're not imagining a perfect cube. Instead, you're probably seeing that iconic trapezoid or wedge-like shape. Wide at the base, slightly narrower at the top, with slanted sides that make it look almost engineered. And that's exactly what it is. But here's the question most people never think to ask: why aren't gold bars just simple rectangular blocks, or even perfect cubes? Wouldn't that be easier to make? So today we'll uncover why gold bars are shaped like this. It turns out the shape of gold bars isn't just about aesthetics or tradition. It's the result of centuries of practical problem solving, decisions shaped by physics, manufacturing, security, and even human behavior. Let's get into it, right here on History of Simple Things. To understand the shape, you first have to understand the material. Gold is incredibly dense. A standard gold bar, often called a good delivery bar, weighs around 12.4 kilograms, or about 27 pounds. That's roughly the weight of a small bowling ball packed into something you can hold with one hand. But here's the thing. Gold is also very soft compared to other metals. You can actually dent or scratch it fairly easily. It doesn't behave like steel or aluminum. It's more malleable, more forgiving, which is great for shaping, but not so great for maintaining sharp edges. If you tried to make a perfect cube out of gold, those crisp edges wouldn't stay crisp for long. Handling, stacking, and transport would slowly round them off. Over time, your neat cube becomes something slightly distorted, so already the idea of a perfect cube starts to fall apart, not because it's impossible, but because it's impractical. Now let's talk about how gold bars are actually made. Most large gold bars are created using a casting process. Molten gold, heated to over 1,000 degrees Celsius, is poured into a mold and left to cool. Sounds simple enough, right? But molten metal behaves in very specific ways. When it cools, it shrinks slightly. If the mold has perfectly straight vertical walls like a cube, this shrinkage can cause the bar to stick inside the mold. And when something that valuable gets stuck, that's a problem. This is where the wedge shape comes in. By designing the mold so that the sides taper slightly outward, wider at the bottom and narrower at the top, the cooled bar can be removed much more easily. It naturally releases from the mold instead of getting jammed inside. Think of it like an ice cube tray. If the cubes had perfectly straight walls, they'd be much harder to pop out. That slight taper makes all the difference. So one big reason gold bars are wedge-shaped is simple. It makes manufacturing smoother, faster, and more reliable. Gold bars aren't just made, they're stored, often in massive quantities. In vaults around the world, thousands of bars are stacked on top of each other. And when you're dealing with something as dense and valuable as gold, stability matters a lot. A wedge-shaped bar has a lower center of gravity when placed flat. The wider base gives it more stability, making it less likely to tip or shift when stacked. The slightly sloped sides also help prevent the bars from sliding against each other too easily. If all the bars were perfect cubes, stacking them would actually be less forgiving. Any slight misalignment could cause uneven pressure or instability in large stacks. So again, the wedge shape isn't random, it's designed to make storage safer and more efficient. Here's something surprisingly important. People have to handle these bars. Even though gold is stored in vaults, it's still moved, counted, inspected, and transported by humans. And remember, each bar weighs over 12 kilograms. That wedge shape actually makes the bars easier to grip. The slanted sides give your fingers a natural angle to hold onto, especially when wearing gloves. A perfect cube with flat vertical sides would be harder to pick up securely, especially if it's smooth and slightly oily from handling. It's a small detail, but when you're moving something that valuable, you don't want it slipping out of your hands. So the shape isn't just about machines, it's about ergonomics too. If you've ever seen a real gold bar, you'll notice something else. The top surface is usually slightly recessed or uneven with stamped markings. These markings include things like the refinery's name, the bar's weight, its purity, usually 99.99%, and a serial number. The wedge shape naturally creates a top surface that's ideal for stamping. Because the top is slightly smaller and often flatter than the base, it provides a clear, visible area for identification. If the bar were a perfect cube, stamping could be less consistent, especially after wear and handling. So even the shape helps ensure that each bar can be easily identified and verified. At this point, you might be thinking, okay, the wedge shape makes sense, but why is it so consistent across the world? That comes down to standardization. Over time, the gold industry developed specific standards for what are known as good delivery bars. These standards ensure that bars can be traded globally without needing to be remeasured or retested every time. The wedge shape became part of that standard, not because it was the only possible shape, but because it proved to be the most practical. So the next time you see a gold bar, take a closer look at its shape. That slight taper, those angled sides, it's not just a design choice. It's the result of centuries of refinement shaped by physics, practicality, and human needs. What seems like a simple wedge is actually a carefully engineered solution to a whole set of challenges. From molten metal to global trade, every step of the process has influenced that final form, and that's what makes it so fascinating. Thank you for watching. If you have suggestions for our next video, feel free to share them in the comments below. We'll be sure to give you an acknowledgement for your contribution. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the history of simple things. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more stories woven through the smallest details.